Welcome on this channel, Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible journalism. That is what we do. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Now, as the 2024 election beckons, Ghana needs a tight monetary and fiscal policy regime as prescribed by the International Monetary Fund. Ghana, as we all know, is at a crossroads once again. What we ask are the needed tax reforms to address revenue shortfalls as against the tight expenditure in an IMF program. Well, we welcome you to the Joy Business Economic Forum, the pre-budget edition, on the theme, the 2024 budget, maintaining a tight fiscal policy and a business-friendly environment in an election year. Now, in the studios with me, we have Dr. Humphrey Ayim-Dake. He's a known face. He is president of the Association of Ghana Industries. We also have Dr. Joseph Obeng, president of the Ghana Union Traders Association. We'll later be joined on Zoom by former Finance Minister Seth Tekbe. And later, we'll also switch to Studio 997. You know how when we have this simulcast, it's both here and 99.7 FM on radio. And there, my colleague George Weafe will be engaging Mark Bedu-Abwaji, CEO, Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Professor Ejapoma Jekedako, economist and senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. But let's start from right here as we set sail. Like I mentioned, I'm joined by Dr. Humphrey Ayim-Dake and Dr. Joseph Obeng. Gentlemen, just to kickstart the conversation, I would like to find out, when you look at our economy currently, where we find ourselves, what is the picture you see? We've received the first tranche of IMF money, $600 million. We're looking forward to the next one. Then there's a bit about, we missed the deadline, we didn't miss a deadline. I'll start with you, Dr. Obeng. What is your quick take on that bit?
Yeah, I think the IMF program brought some confidence back into the system. The first tranche definitely did some magic for us. We saw some kind of stability, even though we were expecting that it went further down. But it was unable to pull down the other indicators, especially in inflation and then the cost of borrowing. These are the areas that we needed to work on. So whilst we are having a sustained stability, we expect that it's able to bring down inflation so that it will make the business environment very conducive. So these are
your initial thoughts. I'll throw same to you, Dr. Ayim-Dake.
Again, good afternoon. Yeah, well, as stated by my colleague and researchers, including the ISA and other relevant research institutions, including the barometer report from the Association of Ghana Industries, indicate that with the interventions of the IMF, there's some reasonability and recovery rate on the economic front. And the recent publication by ISA also affirms that there is a recovery in the process, and that is what we need to aid the transformation of the macro space. First, you need to get a recovery going, and that is what it is. And the next stage is that what are the interventions that will drive down the inflation basket, i.e. the food basket. And therefore, we see that government is making frantic effort to bring about the PFJ2, which is one of the indicators that we believe will support this course. Secondly, the funds that came in also brought some assurance in the forex rate, and therefore we've seen some reasonability in the forex, fluctuation position in the economy. And that is the trend that we believe we can consolidate and to bring about the full recovery and then stability and then growth.
You talk of reasonability, some reasonability in that sector, but we also know that in recent times, the pound has hit 14.8, 15, thereabouts. The euro is also ticking up. The dollar has shot up again. In the last few times I checked, it had moved from the 11 range to 12 plus, up to about 12.7 last time I checked. Inflation is set to, as December approaches, you know what will happen. And then the push and pull effects will result in inflation shooting up again, though we've done pretty well bringing it into the 30s. Is it still as reasonable as we would want it to be at this time of year?
Well, we should realize that the vulnerabilities still persist. They are still paramount. And these vulnerabilities has to do with our export trade. We still do largely primary export trade as against processed and finished goods. So therefore, you will need to look at the degree of depreciation within the space of time you describe it, and then you do year-on-year comparison with the previous year. Respectfully, you will know that there were outliers in the COVID year and then the preceding one. So therefore, when you're doing the comparison, you should look at it in context. So therefore, one shouldn't expect a dramatic change in the forex rate over the period. And secondly, you should realize that we are in a peak season, and the peak season here is Christmas, and the Christmas holidays that goes all the way to the first quarter of next year. So you shouldn't be surprised. We should rather be looking at the degree of depreciation and how its aggregate impact will affect the pricing of product and production.
I don't know what your take is on those comments, but Dr. Obeng, I want to find out the business environment, the economic environment or landscape over the past year, 2023. We're getting to the end of the year. What has it been like, especially for the members of GUTA? What has it meant for your business? Okay, so let's talk about the true state of doing business in the country now. Coming from the last quarter of 2022, due to the effect of the depreciation of the cedi, most of our capitals got depleted, over 50%, and it is true. Most capitals got depleted. And so coming from that angle, and then we also having the IMF program with the new taxes that were imposed on us, alongside the old taxes, many taxes that we have made costs of doing business extremely very high. The inflation, as it were, went to about 54%. And now that it has settled around 38, thereabout, still it's not even acceptable, because inflation has taken or eaten away the purchasing power of the consuming public. Business that we do thrives on turnover. And once our turnover is curtailed because of the purchasing power of consumers being weighing down, it means that we are unable to service our debt and also do the business that we do. We are being very uncompetitive in the sub-region. The business that we do not do in isolation. We do it with the rest of the member. Togo has a free port. Exactly. Competing with them. Côte d'Ivoire has its own and all mechanisms and all of that. Here you are dealing with the high cost of borrowing, inflation, cost of goods and all of that. And even from within here, we are also competing with the other expatriates who are bringing their money from abroad, which is even cheaper than ourselves. So then ultimately it makes even the indigents who are also trying to survive very difficult for us to do business. I've talked about turnover that is impeding the uncompetitiveness in the sub-region. We are also being have to contend with high utility bills. All these things do not help us. The VAT, as it is structured, does not ensure compliance, and it is not helping the growth of businesses. Because How so? Please explain. The VAT, the rate of VAT is extremely high. If you look at the 15% and then the straight levy of 6%, cumulative is about 21%. Until recently, 2021, we were paying a flat rate of 3% across the board. And so there was some kind of uniformity in that VAT system. But now the VAT has been increased or migrated to the standard rate, which cumulates to 21.9%, and then the flat rate of 4%. And then by virtue of a threshold, people who are not made to pay the VAT, and it's also legal, and we are all confined in one business space, doing the same business, making those people who have actually registered for the VAT payment unattractive for patronage. Because don't forget that the VAT is a consumption tax. When you come to the informal sector, most of us use our own monies to pay at the end of the month, because the consumer
do not patronize those who are selling with the VAT of 21%, let alone even the 4%.
But the only intervention I'll come through here, you remember that we've been told time and again that in the West African sub-region, our VAT rate is actually comparatively, in terms of GDP terms, it's pretty low. And that comparatively, other West African countries have higher numbers, and so we have no cause.
No, those things that they say, I don't understand, because we went to the West African sub-region with the Ghana Shippers Authority for VAT funding to the cost of doing business, and we were the highest among our neighboring countries, and it is true. And that we said that cost to tax to GDP in the sub-region, ours is the least. Yes, it is true, because their taxes are not as many as we do here. The rate of taxes is not high. It's affordable, so it ensures compliance. Revenue enhancement dwells on compliance. And we virtually have this compliance because of the way we've structured our tax system. We have to adopt efficient and pragmatic ways of tax collection rather than piling the taxes on and on where people cannot even afford. And that has been the bane, that we do not even achieve our revenue targets, even though the amount of taxes is very high.
Just hold for me. I'll bring in Doc shortly, but let me also have join us via Zoom Professor Ejapoma Jeki Dako. She, of course, is an economist and senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to your listeners and your viewers.
All right, so let's go for the economic jugular. Where we bring you the academics, we want to go straight at it. I'd like to find out what critical actions you feel government can bring to bear to rescue the economy at this point. We've seen it all, but what would be your assessment of what has been done, and what else can they do at this point?
Right. So we've seen, we've gone to IMF, and we've seen the gains that we have started making as an economy since we went to IMF. We've seen a bit of stability, even though we could do more. We've seen a bit of stability as far as our exchange rate is concerned. We've also seen some disinflation occurring. We started off at over 50%. Now we are around 30-something percent, 38%. So we've started seeing the gains. We've seen that there's a bit of credibility. We've managed to restore some credibility in our economy. So we are not seeing capital flying over as we were seeing beginning of the year and then last year. We've seen that in the first 2 quarters of the year as well, GDP has been growing, and hopefully by the end of the year we would see that GDP growth is nearing about 3%. At least that's the projection that we are getting. So far so good. We are making gains from the IMF. My thing here is that we need to take advantage of the fiscal space that we've managed to couch for ourselves, due to the fact that we have gone to the IMF. The fiscal space, we need to be able to guard it and protect it the way we should, and then be directing our attention more to the productive sectors of the economy. And if I speak about the productive sectors of the economy, I'm thinking more about agric. I'm also thinking about industry, etc. So if you look at our economy and the structure of our economy, we are still very much agrarian, not in terms of our contribution to GDP, and not in terms of agric's contribution to GDP, but in terms of agric's contribution to employment, which most people are actually looking out for. And so we should be concentrating a lot on the agric sector. And we haven't done very well in terms of the sort of interventions that we move towards. Yes, we have planting for food and jobs. Good idea, but how aggressive have we become as far as that policy is concerned? In terms of businesses, we also want the private sector to be controlling our economy in terms of providing employment and, contributing to the national output. And that would require us to put in measures that would help us to ensure that the private sector is moving the direction that it's moving. I heard Dr. Ayim Dake and Dr. Joseph Obeng speaking about the manufacturing sector, the industry sector, and how we can make businesses very competitive in our economy. And that's actually the way to go. At the moment, the levies that we have, if you take the COVID levy, the NHIL and the GEF fund, they are pretty much being treated as both consumption taxes and, production taxes. And that doesn't really give a lot of space to businesses, coupled with the fact that they are having to face high interest rates. Of course, as the monetary authorities are trying to bring down inflation, I'm sure that would reflect in the interest rates that businesses are going to be faced with. Right. But if you top that up with the taxes that the businesses are saddled with, these businesses are not really competitive, and that makes it difficult. They are unable to, face the imports that come in, and it makes life quite difficult for them. If you would permit me, I want to see more aggressive measures moving towards the agri sector. Infrastructure should go, and I'm talking about transport infrastructure, actually going towards the agri sector. And we've had enough in the urban areas. We need to make sure, because that's the only way we would feel policy in the pockets of people. If we take in measures that would drive the prices of food down, directly the pockets of people are going to be affected. So my thinking is that we should prioritize infrastructure, transport infrastructure, to these farm gates, so that moving from the farm gates to the urban areas, we can have some declining prices, transport, fares, and then that would reflect in food prices. Right. Again, I think that government should really government should be able to sit with the market queens, and, speak with them, let them understand that it's no more about how much profits they are making, but it's also about the general economy, so that they can negotiate on the prices of goods and services that they bring from the hinterlands. And that would directly influence or directly affect the pockets of people. Okay. Food distribution networks, we need to think about what we are doing with them. We deploy national service personnel all the time. They can be at those places, and then we can have these market networks. Government can afford to transport the goods at an affordable cost in terms of transport. And if people were going to these market centers to go and purchase the products, it would mean a reduced some reduced prices for us. So I'm thinking that we should be working more towards improving the environment for businesses and also improving agriculture as well.
All right. Just hold for me, Prof. I'll come back to you shortly on the macroeconomic indicators and what you think we should be looking at from there. But let me come back into the studio. Dr. Ayim Dake, you've listened to both of your colleagues, at least those here who have shared their ideas. Yeah. In terms of the matter of taxes, what measures do you feel can be brought to bear to ensure that mobilization drive, that it doesn't affect industry? The Association of Ghana Industries, you've lamented over time. What can be done?
Well, theory will tell you, and that's why the economists are part of this engagement. Theory will indicate to you that taxing productive sector excessively will, of course, hurt our output, and it makes us uncompetitive. And once that becomes the case, you drive in a lot of importation. So the question is, how do you manage this particular situation? And I love to discuss this in context. We all know the story, the difficulties over the period and where we are. How do we manage this and give future to our participants and our citizens? It's our really cry and our being. So for the taxation situation, Unfortunately, we've pledged all these taxes to the IMF and to the various debt structuring activities that we've engaged in.
Is that to say we're stuck with them?
Well, as you've pledged it, that is the contractual agreement that you've signed with your partners. And you cannot, at this stage, chicken out of that. So how do you go around it? So we were looking out in our research that how do we deploy non-taxable policies to create a conducive market so that the turnover that my colleague mentioned of will be guaranteed for government to rake in its taxes to pay its various bills. Unfortunately, what is happening now, as we are in the position of excessive taxes on production that we're complaining about, and we've done this many times on the VAT and all the various tax handles once upon a time, our take is that how do we deploy non-taxable policies, i.e., you have the Ghana Standards Authority. How do you use standardization, all right, to differentiate with the imports that are coming in to guarantee the market for the beverage industries, for the cable factories, for the oils that are being produced to maintain their market and still do their volumes? At this stage, we are being hit on both sides, excessive taxes, high imports, and therefore we are losing our market. So what happens to the producers here? They join the bandwagon to start importing products to sell. So what other policies?
And that, of course, impacts local production.
Fantastic. So the GITC, the Ghana International Trade Commission, is one angle. The FDA,
Food and Drugs Authority.
of course. So you could use policies in this space to galvanize and create some form of fair competition for your producers in-house or in-country so that they can still maintain their market share. Currently, we're losing market share. And as you lose market share, there are two issues that happen. Government's revenue will drop. There'll be no jobs created for our citizens. And then the impact is risks to government.
And you've forgotten another end. It could also mean that those from other ends, the foreigners, will take over more sectors of the economy, which means that the sectors of the economy in our own hands, and that is already a very slippery slope.
And that goes
services. Look at services, for example.
I agree with you, and that is why we keep using the word local content. So therefore, the subject matter of using policy regarding local content also guarantees market. So they are not taxable policies, but they are policies that guarantees your market and gives room to the indigents to also put in their best. And we all heard recently about the recent issue about the the refinery that is coming to town,
right?
And the haulage industry being taken over. When you go on that tangent, you lose the local content aspect. And what happens to your citizens? So these are non-taxable policies that government could also deploy and use agencies to regulate and aid you create the market, maintain the market, so your factories don't lose out. Production of the agriculture space, the value chain don't lose out. So you realize that I'm moving from taxable policies to non-taxable policies in such a situation, in such a time, that we find it difficult because all your taxes have been pledged to the debt situation already.
Just a brief one. You've already mentioned factories, production, and all of that, and your membership in the thick of that.
Yes.
How about utility tariffs?
All right.
What has it done to your business?
Well, the reality is what we got to discuss. In situations like that, there are two key things that go up: utility tariffs and that of taxes. All right? So you realize that the tax situation, we all know the position. And utility tariffs, over the period, power cost has gone up about 72%. And with justifiable reasons and argument from the operators, and also with the IMF believing that there are a lot of leakages. I do tell you that about 32%, both technical and commercial losses, goes out of the ECG, and therefore we are not able to recover. So you realize that there's a need for such adjustment. So yes, they are what it is now. How do you navigate the situation? And therefore that is what our proposition is. Look out for non-taxable items. Utility tariffs and taxes at this stage, unfortunately, it's hard. So how do you navigate the position? Go for non-taxable issues, and then let's navigate it and create the market. And then gradually, as the macro drops and then export beans and then the deficit position reduces, then virtually we can still go back to government and drive taxes down.
Right.
Nonetheless, there are other essential products that we still believe the tax element should be zero VAT.
Like which ones?
Like the sanitary pad one that we've mentioned.
That is, you want us to go back to that?
No, I don't want to go back to that, but the issue is that it's a way to still keep production on whilst you still give them zero-rated VAT, and they can still create jobs.
Zero-rated, yeah.
Of course, for sanitary production of sanitary parts locally, not imported sanitary parts.
Point made. We'll get back to that point much later. I have to go to Studio 997, but I see you want to quickly react, so please make it very brief.
Yeah, I'm talking about government's own agenda of import substitution. How are they going to help the local manufacturers in this regard? In terms of the utility bills and all that. I'm just from Nigeria, Lagos, where I visited their industrial area. Government have deliberately and consciously built gas pipeline along their manufacturing lines, and then people tap into the gas, which is far cheaper than electricity. This is some of the things that we needed, the loans that we contracted to build for our local manufacturers so that we can be even more productive. So if you want to do import substitution, then there should be a deliberate government policy and contain the excessive importation that we do by way of non-tax policies, like they're using the investment laws and all that. Now, as I'm speaking, China Mall and Chinatown have taken a chunk of our market, 30% of the market, just these two companies. And if you do not find a way, because they do not bring the correspondent fund also, how are we going to make them bring the forest to use it for import?
That is a crucial point you make. And we can also look at the example of Kenya, where recently they were fighting the Chinese because of some of these same mechanisms. Well, I'll come back to you. But for now, let's head into Studio 997, where George Wiafe, my colleague, is sitting with some of our other guests to find out what their thoughts are. This is the Joy Business Pre-Budget Forum. If you can hear me, George Wiafe, over to you.
National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and also on Zoom, Professor John Gachi. So let me first straight go to engage the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The budget is going to be presented this Wednesday. Let me first look at what has been the level of pre-engagement with the Ministry of Finance, and has it given you any strong indication that the proposal that you put forward indeed will be taken on board come Wednesday, when this document is presented to Parliament?
Thank you very much. I think it's become a norm that prior to the budget, we are always called to present our input into the budget. And I think a week ago or so, there was this prosperity conference that you also had an opportunity to re-emphasize on the input that we have made to the Ministry of Finance. But it's one thing presenting this input. It's another thing, finding them in the actual budget. A bit of disappointment over the years, where we've had a situation where we've presented what we think that should be the case for Ghana, looking at the business environment and what businesses are talking about. But in the end, you look at the budget that will come out, and it's so heavy on taxes, a budget that is supposedly being support and to boost productivity. You see numerous taxes in those budgets, and I think that is not helping us. We have done that, presenting our input. We are hopeful this time around, looking at the various engagement that we have had. And of course, we've also received some assurances from the minister in some of the other engagement that they have heard our cry, and they actually know the impact of these taxes on businesses. And for me, everybody now can see what is happening. Even if you are not within the business circle, when you go and the prices are up, you could see that the one who is producing at a higher cost. And of course, it's translating into prices. And it's also obvious that if you look at GDP for the first quarter and second quarter, you realize the impact of these taxes and other costs on the cost of production of businesses. In fact, but for the services sector, all the major sectors that have the potential to drive the economy, the industrial sector, the manufacturing sector, the construction sector, they all contracted. And it's because inflation is high, it's because interest rates are high, it's because taxes are high. So when you put all together, basically, they are not making any profit.
Do I get from you that based on your engagement with the Ministry of Finance, be the deputy, be the minister himself, that these proposals that you've tabled, they are going to be taken on board and something will be done about that come Wednesday?
I think that it will be in the interest of this country for the proposals that we have tabled to be factored into the 2024 budget. Anything short of that will be disastrous for businesses and for this economy. In fact, when we are presenting a proposal, we look at other institutions who also look at it from other angles, but we look at it from the point of view of a typical business person, which will require certain environment to be able to be produce at a lower cost and be competitive. So we present our proposals along that line. In fact, the situation that we are going through, I should tell you that IMF will not solve our problem. What will solve the problem is to energize and stimulate the private sector. If we're able to do that, we'll come out
But then
of
it
the
comes to my
situation.
question about how do we do it. And again, I remember I've asked you this question before, and whether things have changed now, about who is going to fund the expansion or the growth of the economy. At the time that some will say that the international capital market is close to Ghana, other sources of raising revenue internationally has been a challenge, even with our bilaterals. Because of this current negotiations that is going on, it's difficult that we might get anything from them. It looks like raising revenue internally is the way to go. So some will say, now I'll be coming to Professor Gachi to also get his thought on this, that how do we deal with this challenge in funding the growth of the economy, in funding the expansion of the economy? Someone has to take care of this cost.
Yes, so I'll look at it from both the revenue side and then the expenditure side. We understand that government needs revenue. We understand the situation we find ourselves, for which reason the government cannot go to the capital market to raise resources. But in coming out with a tax that will generate a revenue, you should know that whatever structure and whatever implementation plan you put in place will affect the agents of the economy, those who are consuming and those who are producing, and the economy at large. In fact, taxes in some other jurisdictions are used to stimulate private sector activity. Our taxes here, the structure and the way it's being implemented, is not helping businesses in any way.
Interesting.
So you may be generating the revenue, but at the end of it, you are doing that at the expense of the private sector. That will rather give you the higher tax and also create the job for the people who are not unemployed. Let me give you a typical example. Our VAT. Prior to 2018 mid-year budget, the NHIL and the GET Fund were part of the VAT system, which for any business person, when you get it, it's input deductible. So after that, they deduct it and it gives some relief to businesses. Now, they separated it from the normal VAT and made it a straight line levy, which become a direct cost to the businesses. And of course, they will translate it to whoever is consuming. So one of the things that we have asked is that they should go back and reinstate the NHIL, and if they really want to help businesses and the GET Fund into the normal VAT, so they can be deducted as an input VAT. Otherwise, you keep on killing the businesses that you have.
That lays
Some
the
of the
golden eggs,
taxes
right?
that we have now, they are not necessary.
Nuisance tax.
Nuisance taxes. Those taxes were brought in purposely to solve a specific problem. For example, the COVID tax. COVID is way gone, and there is no where in
But someone
in the
will say
world.
that some monies were borrowed and it has to be paid back.
There should be an
Do
accountability.
we borrow again to refinance that debt, or
You
taxing
see- you
this
see-
might be the best way out?
Billions of cities came in through the
COVID support.
COVID
Some were
support.
grants, some were loans as well.
So they have to. But personally, I think that the supposed support that they gave to businesses, they were not free monies. I haven't heard anywhere the amount that they have been able to collect from those businesses that they give the money to. Otherwise, it become waste money, and you come back to the individuals and to the businesses to tax them. So your structure should be able to generate you the revenue and should be able to stimulate the activities of the private sector. If the businesses are collapsing, you end up not getting the revenue that you want. So that balance that we need to create, the balance of government getting the revenue and also enhancing the activity of business, for me, we've not been able to do that, and it's not good for us going forward.
Let me try and bring in Professor John Gachi, an economist as well. And Prof, one of the biggest questions or the concerns of businesses out there is that, listen, we are being burdened with too much taxes. But at this current state of the economy, some would also argue that how do we run the engine in terms of the economic expansion and growing the economy? Is it the expenditure cut thing might be the best way out, or still we have to raise revenue to support the economy, Prof?
Yeah, we have to raise revenue, and we also need to manage our expenditure. But we cannot raise revenue in a manner that will become disincentive to consumption, become disincentive to building a proper business environment. At best, we can use fiscal tools to make the environment disincentive. We can also use fiscal tools as a balance between meeting government revenue targets or program and also creating incentive for the business environment. And this will come by through engagement with the business community, which I know some engagement has started, especially because businesses have been complaining about numerous taxes and some of the taxes being disruptive to their business operations. And when that engagement takes place, those engagements should reflect on policies that the government gives to us, especially through the budget reading. So the need for revenue enhancement should not be misconstrued to disrupt the environment for proper business engagement.
Prof, and Prof, I want to also get from you the argument about the expenditure cuts and how it should be handled, especially in an election year. Should this cut target the waste in the system, or how? Now, just from a few days ago, we had the people of Line, even the member of parliament as well, arguing or making a point that the La General Hospital that was broken down, it should be constructed or factored in the budget going into next year. Now, they have all these pressures there in an election year. Fiscal discipline will be a major challenge. With respect to reviewing the expenditure, which areas should it target? When you have all these calls and push, especially in an election year, how should it be handled?
Well, I believe the example that you cited is not properly construed because it is government who decided to rebuild the General Hospital, pull down the structures, and up to this time, nothing has been done. So if there is pressure for the hospital to be built, that should be taken as a project on its own and to be executed. If government had not gone to pull down the hospital, I'm not sure such a pressure will come. But I believe when people are talking about expenditure cut, they know what they are talking about. They talk about realignment of ministries and then some appointment that will also go a long way to go. So it is not one area that you should cut expenditure to create the expectation of the people. So you look at one area, you cut off expenditure, you go to another area, you cut off expenditure, plus making sure you bring efficiency in expenditure. That is what is expected of us, efficiency in expenditure. If you have so much waste in the system, so much leakages in the system, and there is no frantic effort at ensuring that those leakages are blocked and efficiency comes into government expenditure and efficiency is deployed in raking in revenue, then we will just be going through a cycle and we will not find solution to our problem. But the point I'm making is that we shouldn't make the need to raise revenue as a mutually inclusive idea, such that that is the only tool left for government, and government must do anything possible, even if the policy that the government is rolling out in terms of raking in more revenue is inimical to business environment. It's making the business environment very hostile. It's making business profit eaten by various type of taxes, capital eroded by various type of taxes, and then the economic outturn. We have reduced inflation from 54% to around 38%. That is about 16 percentage point reduction. That has not impacted on cost of borrowing. That has not impacted on so many things, prices in the market. This is a concern. So we have a long way to go to address the issue, but we shouldn't make it as if government has only one way to go. And if government does not go that way, then there will be a problem. And what will happen at the end of the day, maybe some of these taxes will be counterproductive. People commitment to payment of taxes may be reduced. And at the end of the day, the tax efforts will not yield much for us. So that is what I can comment on concerning the question that you posted.
Okay. Prof, I'll be coming back to you again to get your thoughts about fiscal discipline in an election year and whether it's a myth or something that can actually be realized. If you've joined us, this is the Joy Business Pre-Budget Forum, engaging the business community and economists on their thoughts on the 2024 budget that will be presented to Parliament this Wednesday. It's a simulcast edition as we are engaging some businesses here in the studios of Joy 997, and also on studio, my colleague Ben Akapo is also engaging the Guta President and the President of the Ghana Association of the Industries. And here in the Joy Studios 997, I'm here with Magbedu Abaji. He is the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. On Zoom, you just heard Professor John Gachi. And also I'm going back on Zoom to engage a critical sector of our economy, the entrepreneurs. Sharif Gali, he is the Chief Executive of the Ghana Chamber of Young Entrepreneurs. Sharif, thank you so much for your time for joining us in our pre-budget discussion. And for you as entrepreneurs, some would say, what are you looking forward to? Have you even had an opportunity to make your input, and how are things going with respect to any assurance from the Ministry of Finance that this is what you want and it will be realized?
All right, thank you very much. I hope, can you hear me?
So, Sharif, if you can hear me, I'm just trying to find out from you whether you've had an opportunity to engage the Ministry of Finance in terms of inputs, and what has the Ministry of Finance told you, whether they're going to work or they're going to take your inputs on board.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Sharif, loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much. So on the issue of engaging the Ministry of Finance, so we actually received a call from our mother body. I'm sure Mark and the rest of the team are aware, from the Private Enterprise Federation, that the ministry is requesting the input of the private sector as they gear towards the 2024 budget. But unfortunately, the time came very late. And as we always keep saying, input of the private sector, you need to make it, you need to give it a long time so that we can go through whatever policies you are proposing and then giving our thought. But I would lie if I say that we've not been given the chance to give our input, and we have submitted whatever we have to the mother body, which is the Private Enterprise Federation, and we are hoping that this will be conveyed, same will be conveyed to the Ministry of Finance. So some of the things we are actually looking at, as especially coming from the area of young entrepreneurs, is just as Mark and the rest of the team indicated, we're also looking at tax incentives that are geared towards promoting or stimulating the private sector, especially when young entrepreneurs are concerned. Because the thing that we keep talking about is that if you want the youth to run sustainable and global competitive businesses, you need to be willing to take away some of the tax burden on them. And we've been talking about this. We've been talking about the corporate income tax reduction so that these young people can be able to reinvest whatever they make, at least into their business. We are not saying that young entrepreneurs shouldn't pay taxes. We want to pay taxes because we want to develop our nation, Ghana. But then the question is that, do you want the young persons to collapse was trying to pay taxes, or you want them to grow so that you can have 200 businesses or 500 businesses in future that can pay taxes for your economy to grow. So we as young entrepreneurs are looking up to that. We are also looking up to a very good framework or policy structure towards improving the infrastructure and the utility services in Ghana. Because it's very important that if Ghana, we are able to advance our infrastructure, utility, we are talking about electricity, water supply, and all of this that are hindering the young people and the startups who are starting business. If this can be worked on, then we are sure that the cost of doing businesses in Ghana will reduce and the young people would be able to do business. One thing that is paramount to us is that the question is that why are we still having COVID-19 levy and why do we still have even e-levy? Knowing very well that our managers of the economy are telling us that we do not, nowhere in Ghana, in the world, I don't know, still have COVID-19 levy. Why do we still have it? We were told that the target for e-levy, we didn't achieve it. Why do we still have it? Because of this e-levy, a lot of young people are not able to do their business well because you and I know that the Ghanaian young people are the one leading the revolution and the innovation when it comes to online payment. A lot of these young people are running away from e-levy. And so if you're not achieving the target, take it off and find a better way to put it so that these young people can pay the same taxes. We understand you wanted all of us to be in the tax net, but if it is not working, does that mean that it should continue? So we want to see what other innovative idea this government is bringing on board when it comes to that. And then we also raise a very paramount issue that is with respect to USTAT, the almighty USTAT that was promised by this government. And I keep saying it. You don't come and tell the young person that I understand your need is access. One of the critical needs you have is access to funding. And for that reason, I am coming now with USTAT. And up till now, the actual USTAT for the past 2 to 3 years have not been implemented. You can go and ask all the agencies, aside the prototyping that they did, and GEA using a component of World Bank support and calling it USTAT, the actual USTAT that was supposed to be a 10 million Ghana cedi that will be supported or put in a fund that will support young people never materialized.
So
and the Minister of Finance needs to tell us why. If you don't have the money, why don't you have it? Yes.
I get from you that for you, job creation is another major concern for you as entrepreneurs, right? And therefore, you still want something to be done in that area going into 2024, looking at the fact that previous programs haven't created the required jobs for young graduates out there. Sheriff, if you can hear me, I'm asking you about
I didn't hear you at all.
My concern is that I get from you that another major concern for you is that you want government to do more when it comes to job creation going into 2024. Looking at the fact that previous promises and programs this year and even 2022 hasn't gotten the desired results.
At all. It's actually, it hasn't even, not the results, they couldn't even start them. And one of them was a USTAT that was targeted to create 1 million jobs. It was never implemented. There was a prototype. I don't know how you prototype giving money, but there was a prototype and some few young entrepreneurs were giving some few monies, and then that was all. So it never materialized. And we would like to hear from the finance minister, why? Is it that we don't have the 10 million we promised? Or we deliberately just gave the young people that, no, we're going to create 1 million jobs and support those of you who want to be entrepreneurs. So we really want to see why it never materialized. And secondly, we would want to see what plans they have going forward. Are we going to do it this year, especially when it's election year, or we are waiting to do it during the election year? So yes, it never materialized, and we want to know why and when they want to really do the USTAT.
So I'll be coming back to you in terms of to look at, for you going forward, what would be your expectation again going into next year? Something that will give the young entrepreneurs out there some hope in 2024. Magbedu Abaje, the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So, Mr. Abaje, do I get from you that it's just about taxes, and if those issues about taxes are addressed, pronto, everything is okay?
Not really, but I think one of the main issues is taxes. I mean, I think infrastructure is also very key for businesses, and it comes back to still generating the revenue.
And that's what I was going to come back to you
so of course we need to
ask you, how do
prioritize.
we fund that infrastructure?
You see, we need to prioritize.
Because what we are hearing from government sources, it looks like we might not witness those massive infrastructure projects and all the rest next year being an election year, because maybe funding is going to be a major challenge.
George, we cannot do all these things at the same time. We need to prioritize. And for me, at the moment, what we need to do is to stabilize the economy, of which we have seen some level of stability. The other thing is to how we can empower the private sector. Once we get this thing down, and then we now look at what is ahead of us. So our focus now is creating the right environment for businesses. And you know, when you have businesses doing very well, when you have most of them making profit, then when you go to them for taxes, it will not be so difficult for you or for them to pay to you, because they understand the need for us to.
So which one comes first, the chicken or the egg?
For me, I think that we should now be looking at the taxes and empowering the private sector. And then what they are doing, what they themselves, I mean, go to the mining centers. Some of the mining companies are constructing roads and doing some of this infrastructure. But if because of taxes they don't have the money, they can't do that. So let's help them create the right environment, remove the taxes that are not really working. In fact, we think that when we introduce more taxes and we increase tax rate, that is what will give it a tax revenue. It will not work.
It won't work.
Our efforts now should be focused on tax compliance. We have said it over and over and over again. The taxes that we have, if the GRA and the Ministry of Finance is putting a lot of attention on ensuring that those who are supposed to pay are paying, we will rake in more revenue than introducing new taxes. So we made it clear that in the 2024 budget, of course, we don't want to see any new tax. We have a lot on businesses now, and any attempt to add another one will be disastrous.
What about redefining or
and
a refined tax
of redefining,
or hiking,
like what
or
I said, the 2018 way of converting some of the VAT into a straight line, that is not really helping. The question we need to ask ourselves is, have they been able to generate the revenue from these taxes? And have they been able to do an assessment of the impact of this straight line on businesses? We are telling them that it's translating into a higher cost and making businesses unprofitable and uncompetitive. So they should take a second look at. We are also obsessed, I think when we made mention of tax revenue, we have non-tax revenue. I haven't heard anything. And in fact, in Africa, just as they are making comparison that for tax revenue, we are below the African average. Non-tax revenue, we are also below the African average. But nobody is making mention of that and looking at ways to increase non-tax revenue. It's about tax, and they're adding more. In the end, we end up killing businesses.
Indeed,
and not
it looks like
getting
the major
revenue.
concern for businesses out there is about taking a second look at the taxes issues and how that could help improve their fortunes. If you just joined us, this is the pre-budget forum, that is the 2024 budget, maintaining a tight fiscal policy to spur economic growth in an election year. This is a Joy Business Special live on Joy 99.7 FM and also on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. Now, prepare for an exciting experience at the main fair of the 2023 EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair. Join us at the Accra International Conference Center this Thursday, 23rd November to Sunday, 23rd November 2023. Doors will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day to welcome you. This year, we are driving into the theme of home ownership, exploring the nuances between affordability, comfort, and luxury. Whether you are embarking on the home ownership journey or looking for upgrades, the fair is your destination for everything housing. This year's EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair is in partnership with EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and powered by the Plan City Extension Project for Cities and Habitats that is rent to own, and also sponsored by Elegant Homes and General Construction Limited, where quality meets value. EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, Plan City Extension Project, Cities and Habitats, Elegant Homes, where quality meets value. Global Lighting, your solution to quality lighting. Syntax Tank, a strong, a tough. Gold Key Properties, building prestige since 1997. Springfield Estates, where dreams are built. And Virtual Security, complete security and solutions. DBS, your roof experts, virtual InfoSec Africa security solutions by design, Sind government that's making the world a better place. Clifford Homes, beautiful homes, and wise investment, and Kingston Heights, City Kumasi by HTG Homes Limited. So Ben, this is from our side at Joy 99.7. You may take over and engage your guests in terms of what they think about the budget and also what they want to be put in place for them. Benjamin Akapo, over to you, just like how Joe Latte will say it. They want to be put in place for them. Benjamin.
Time for me to come back into the picture now in the studios of Joy News. And of course, we're still here with our guests, Dr. Ayim Dake and of course, Dr. Joseph Obeng, representing the AGI and GUTA respectively. We also have Professor Jackie Dako joining the conversation via Zoom. Interesting discussion so far. And you heard Mark Bedu Abaji of the GNCCI talk about taxes, yes, but how are you going to ensure that you empower and protect the private sector? And that's you. So let me tease out two core issues that Professor Kachi brought to bear. The first one having to do with the fact that we need efficiency in expenditure. So I'll cite some examples. He spoke about the La hospital pulled down. That's going to be extra cost. Time and again, we hear about wastage in the reports of the Auditor General. In fact, the latest one that has come to the fore, from which we're getting a breaking report that Parliament has rescinded its decision on. There was talk about, the post-budget discussion and going to Kweu and Rock City and all of that to go and do it. And the Member of Parliament for Buem, Kofi Adams, said, no, we don't need to do that. We can save money from there and take care of, for example, water for those affected by the Akosobo Dam spillage. In terms of efficiency in expenditure, where do we find ourselves? The second question, and this will be for both of you in about 2 minutes each. The second one has to do with the point he made. Inflation has fallen from about 54.1% to about 38% thereabouts. He says, and we can do the math, it's about a 16% decrement. But from where I sit, if I look at the cost of things a few months ago, and with the reductions in inflation, I'm still not seeing the difference. When I buy fish, when I buy meat, when I buy rice, nothing has changed for me. Where do you sit on that? I'll start with you, Dr. Ayim Dake.
Okay, great, thank you. On the case of the efficiency, we need to talk a lot about this. It has to do with prioritization, and that is why you have established public procurement authority through which technically all process of procurement within the government space should go through, whereby they. I
like the fact that you say technically because we all see.
Of course, those, and then the next stage beyond that technicality is implementation and sanctioning wrongdoing. Once you put these 2 or 3 issues in the same basket, you could juggle it and get efficiency out of it. It's not a matter of rocket.
Is it that simple?
But the next one has to do with the individual or the personalities in there that are executing. And if they don't execute according to the letter and the law, the next is sanctioning. So I gave you use the procurement method, you use first prioritization, and then you go to the procurement method, and beyond that, then you go into the process of execution through the parties or the organizations that are playing in there. When you detect a foul play through the Auditor's General's report, you sanction. Once you sanction, you correct the wrongs.
And sanctions don't apply. We can look at the instance of even the former PPA boss himself, and what happened? What happened in the end?
Are not applying, the role of the fourth estate of the realm then becomes an issue of bringing it out, naming and shaming, and where the authorities are not acting.
What did we not do with what did the fourth estate not do?
So we have done our part of it. If the law courts then decide not to prosecute accordingly, you name and shame accordingly, and you continuously do that. That is why we keep coming here every now and then to air our opinion on taxes and other issues that will make the business environment conducive. It's a process. It's not an event. So you never stop doing it.
All right, and we'll continue. As for us,
On the inflation too, you should realize that there's always a pass-through effect, and this the inflation started sometime in the second quarter of the year, corresponding by the first quarter, we still saw inflation high there. The pass-through effect, and don't you forget, a number of entrepreneurs and business owners had lost money in there. And number 2, besides the inflation dropping, there are other factors of production that are not gone down, like utility cost, like the cost of power. The lending rate hasn't dropped significantly. Bear in mind, some business owners had contracted loans prior to the deflation, and therefore maybe they've gone through restructuring. So there's a pass-through effect, and therefore you need time to allow this deflation to have an impact over the years.
Okay, point made. Let me come to you, Dr. Obeng, briefly on those same points.
Yeah, let me start with the inflation. Inflation, the reduction that we experience is as a result of the stability, the seeming stability that we got for the past.
Seeming stability.
Yes, because then you see that if we are not able to get the second tranche to sustain it, then we are not getting, because lately it started going up a little. So
you're forecasting that as much as the second tranche delays, our economy will start wobbling again.
Yeah, we have to do it as fast.
Not on the front of inflation, because you should bear in mind the IMF have made sure that there's no quantitative easing coming from the BOG. Zero financing from the BOG is also significant.
That point has been made, right?
So because I'm looking at it when we are doing the Christmas purchases and all that, it's also going to hike some of the prices. But the reason why inflation have come down, it's not being manifested as you were saying, is because all the other cost of doing business remains constant. The only thing that brought a little respite as far as inflation is concerned is the stability of the cedi. But all the other factors, the cost of doing business and all that remain the same or going up. So then it takes away the gain that we should have gotten from the stability. And that's the reason. And then when we talk about efficiency, it's very worrying. You see,
it's almost as though it were intentional to be inefficient.
Exactly. Because for the past 5 years, we've been exceeding our revenue target. So if we exceed our revenue target and we are still funding this revenue insufficient for the nation, for the development of the nation, then there's a question mark on how we expend our revenue. And that's how we have to adopt efficient ways and take away all corruptible practices when it comes to our expenditure. This has been the bane, because if you do not ensure value for money, contracts, for instance, well, maybe a contract that normally the private sector would have gone for $1 million. When government go for the same contract, the same value, the same everything, it's going for about 10 million. So it's a waste, complete waste.
Inefficiency.
Inefficiency.
Let me bring in Professor Ejapoma Jekidako. Prof, I hope you're still with us. You made a point earlier, and I just want to avert your mind to it before I go to the substantive question. The substantive question has to do with the macroeconomic indicators and what you feel we can do in terms of that in the budget for 2024. But before we get there, I would like you to share with me, on the back of government's flagship programs aimed at or geared at production and economic stability. We can talk of 1D, 1F, one village, one dam, planting for food and jobs and all of that. How do you feel this administration has fared? Because those are aimed at shoring up the economy. Two questions for your reflection, Prof.
One that I'll speak about is a 1D, 1F. I think that was a very laudable initiative from the part of the government, because if we need to get around our exchange rate problems and have stability in our exchange rate, then clearly we need to make sure that we are coming up with industries that would produce goods that we would otherwise have imported from abroad. And so to that extent, I can say that was a laudable initiative. In terms of what we need after coming up with the initiative, I still feel that there's more we can do to be able to get those industries running and create the kind of environment that these industries need to be able to operate and become competitive. And that's what we haven't really, we haven't really got right. We haven't been able to create a competitive environment for our businesses. We've heard this afternoon on countless times about businesses complaining about the taxes and interest rates, etc. As for interest rates, if inflation is supposed to come down, then they would see interest rates also coming down, because then Bank of Ghana would work towards bringing down the monetary policy rate, and that would reflect in the GRR and interest rates as well. And so we haven't seen much being done to support the businesses. So it's one thing saying that I've come up with this policy, and another thing also saying that I've been very aggressive in ensuring that businesses have the required environment to make sure they are flourishing and competing with industry, with foreign goods, etc. And when it comes to planting for food and jobs, yes, I share the same sentiment. Good policy, good initiative, but the point is, what have we done to support the agric sector? In fact, if you look at the contribution of the agric sector to GDP, it lags behind the services sector, clearly indicating that we have neglected the agric sector in much of the things that we are doing. What sort of incentives are we providing for farmers? Are we ensuring that these farmers have ready markets? How are we transporting these goods or these commodities from those hinterlands to the urban areas for sale? These are things that we need to sit back and then appreciate and provide the required support that we need to be able to provide for our farmers. Again, regarding inflation, we could think about why we are struggling with interest rates, why we are seeing so much inflation and it translating into higher interest rates. If you go to the ports, GRA, when GRA fixes its rate for traders, we haven't seen that GRA is fixing the rates for, let's say, about a quarter for it to translate into proper planning for our traders, so that they can also stop hoarding the foreign currency that they need to go and use to import the goods, for it to even translate into the prices of goods and services, for interest rates to come down. So we need to take a holistic sort of position or posture into addressing our issues.
What is that holistic posture? Because you seem to be reiterating the matters we already know and which government is fully aware of. What then are those holistic policies we need to adopt? Because we've got to the point where we have to, something has got to give. That's what we want to know.
Sure, which is one that GRA, which is what I said, that GRA has to be able to fix the exchange rate for a period of time, for let's say a quarter, for 6 months, so that businesses can also plan. Because whether we like it or not, businesses would factor in the fact that they feel that the exchange rate is going to go anyhow into the pricing of their commodities. But if they can be setting on what the rate would be by the time the goods arrive at the port, then they can factor that into their pricing, and that would go on to benefit the ordinary consumer. In terms of looking at a policy like the planting for food and jobs, it's okay to come up with that policy, but what are you doing to ensure that when the farmers also plant the crops, they get ready market? We can get food distribution networks, which is what I said earlier, that we could get food distribution networks, and people could go there and make purchases of these foods. Government having these food distribution networks would ensure that the cost of transportation of the food would be very low, so that when people are going to purchase the goods, they would also have it at an affordable rate. We can focus, instead of focusing on roads in urban areas, we can, because next year is an election year, we can't say that we won't spend. We would have to spend, but spending has to go to priority areas that we can see would expand the productive sector of the economy. So if we are making roads, or if we are constructing roads, then we should be looking at constructing roads in those rural areas where food is going to be coming from, so that at least food would be transported at a cheaper cost that would also reflect in the prices of the food that is being sold. Earlier on, I spoke about having a word with the market queens. Government should be able to sit with the market queens and tame the way they increase the prices of goods, for example, tomatoes, etc. They should tame down on how they increase the prices of these goods so that at least the ordinary consumer can also benefit from buying the goods. So these are very practical ways that we can look at in terms of allowing the policies that government has brought forth to reflect in the lives of the ordinary person.
All right, do hold for me, Prof. I'll come back to you. There's a crucial aspect that I have to run by you ahead of the budgetary reading. Gentlemen, I see you have some reactions. I have substantive questions for you, so let me make this very brief. Dr. Obing.
About the prices of foodstuffs in the market and all that, it's not about anybody talking to the market queens. They know what they are doing.
Right.
You know, most of these monies that the farmers use is advanced by these market queens. These are the things that many people do not know. And then when they go and buy the produce, you see, the farmer is at an advantage more than the person who is going to buy. But normally they think that the market women are cheating on them because we do not have storage for this perishable farm produce. And so this perishable
but the fact still remains that you buy them at very low prices and sell them at exorbitant prices.
No.
Is it to make the difference?
So when somebody is going to Churchman or at a place to go and buy tomatoes, if the person does not go that early to buy, the farmer have to suffer the perishable good. You have to fund the goods being perished, and then he offload this risk to this farmer, this trader. The trader will have to travel with it. When the consumer goes to the market and buying this tomato, he has to press it and see those that are hard, and then leave all the perishable. It's not that easy.
It's not that simple.
So how do we get a place of storage or adding value? If we add, we do value addition, then we solve all these problems.
But that would take me way back into time when we had all those silos and Nkrumah. We've done away
exactly.
with them. So that is not a problem. But we should understand, repeatedly, we should realize that we are trying to exit a crisis position that we shouldn't take away out of our discussion. And in a crisis position, you deploy tools that will give you stability and recovery. And therefore, things might not be done in the normal setting, whereby you allow the theory of free market economy to reign. That is what the professor said.
We can no longer give free reign to that.
No, wait. Don't misquote me. Because you see, put it in the context of recovery. The country is in a difficult position. And if it is detected that from the farm gate to the consumer, the interplay or actors in that interplay can collude and do collusion. Collusion is against the free market theory. And therefore, if you interrogate that carefully, you will find out that the proposition from the lady that can government get in there and negotiate with the market queens, because there's significant collusion in there between them and the market.
You speak of collusion, but those control mechanisms.
So therefore, that is why I'm
also very much against
that is not
the
in
free
doubt.
market, the capital
that is
market.
Not in doubt. That is why I say situate it in the context of a country in crisis seeking to exit the crisis. And therefore, if everybody has to come on board, there must be some regulation in some places whereby the dominant theory of free market economy shouldn't be the panacea. Sometimes there must be regulation to aid us exit the difficulties. Make sure that all your discussions should be contextualized in the position that
hold for me. Do you agree? Hold for me. Do you agree with such regulation?
There shouldn't be any
hold for me. I get your point, but
thank you.
Whether in context or outside of context, it is regulation. Do you agree with that?
What government can do is to make value addition, make the storages and all that. If government is able to do that and store, then government can also offload.
But that is
to the market
medium term.
No, medium term, but
short term.
Well, let
the budget is a short term budget.
The trader is providing a service to the farmer and then also to the consumer. To the farmer, he's taking the risk of the goods being perished at his warehouse. He take this thing, transport it all at his expense. And then when you bring it to the market, you have to also contend with people taking the good ones and leave the bad ones. So it's not as easy as...
It's not as simple as that.
Everywhere,
I just have to bring this
and we'll
point
give
in.
this person a capital. Nobody is giving this poor trader the capital to go on this.
And if that trader wants to go to the bank, you're looking at about 40%.
Exactly, 40%. All these things have to be factored. The farmer is taking out of all the problem this poor person is fine. So if you have to look at this, we have to look at it comprehensively. But what will do the magic is let's do value addition and create the storages and all that so that we have the buffer and the government, if government itself want to sell to the market, it does it at a controlled price.
I don't know about the farmer totally being extricated from any of the shocks though, but I get the point you're making. I just have to ask in context, the Association of Forex Bureau in Ghana is saying that by close of year, they expect some marginal depreciation ahead of the festive season. Put that into the context of ISA saying that they want the withdrawal of discounts on benchmark import values on selected import general goods and vehicles. What's your take? I'll start with you, Dr. Ayim Dake.
I mean, we've advanced that case since 2019. And
is it practical still?
It is. I mean, and you see, you don't analyze this in isolation. You got to put it in context. And there you could see that today, there's a lot of imports. And that's why I used the word earlier on. How can government stimulate this economy and make it competitive with non-taxable policies? And I repeated it carefully, and you realize that most of the argument is all focused on taxes. The situation as it stands, we have committed ourselves to pay debt, and the situation is precarious. So the taxes, it's a difficult position. It's not desirous. Yes, it's not productive. Inclined for production. Nonetheless, in a crisis position, when you seek to exit, when your external debt has still not been approved, or the structuring of the external debt has still not been approved, and you are depending on domestic ones, it tells you the vulnerabilities ahead of us are still alive. And
the shocks are still there.
The shocks are still there.
Okay.
How do you circumvent and navigate that space?
All right.
And let the discussion be focused than generalize it. That's why I took the position of the professor when she says, how do you regulate the transport sector in terms of dropping the food basket inflation regarding transportation? And then I argued out the case.
Because it also has a knock-on effect.
It has a knock-on effect. So how do you set it? And then you look at the theory. Do you suggest that the free market economy theory will work in such crisis position? What should be the degree of balance?
How do you massage it?
How do you massage? That is the job of the the managers of the economy.
Financial managers.
To get the balance correct.
Dr. Obeng, same on that point.
On the benchmark reversal, we have said that it was not a panacea for the manufacturers. And now they were saying that they were uncompetitive because of the benchmark reduction. And now it has been taken off the table. And they are still not competitive.
What other factors are triggering?
Excuse me.
Let me make this point.
You
keep taking the layer of uncompetitive one at a time.
If you keep
compounding it, you worsen the situation.
So that's what
let him understand the context.
We needed to come together and find out the problem and solve their problem for them.
Our problem.
All of us. Because
I thought it was a general problem, though.
The argument that they have advanced is that when benchmark is taken off the table, they are going to be more competitive and sell their produce.
We said and now worsen the situation. Worsen means that it's already worse.
The point you're trying to make is that while it has been taken off, they are still not competitive.
No, they are not, because it was also helping them.
What other factors?
But they don't know, because there's a clear thin line between the manufacturing that we are doing here in Ghana, the clear thin line from that manufacturing and importation, because about 90% of their inputs are also imported.
That's an import substitution.
And they were also...
That's an import substitution.
Yeah.
Is it correct?
And they were also having advantage of this benchmark reduction. So we should have...
Import substitution is an economic model.
No, please.
As you pursue
we should have come together
when there are
and
policies
find the
that are
actual...
inimical to the import substitution, like the benchmark discount value, you say it.
Now,
don't add more.
Now you know what
they reversed it.
You know what is happening. They've reversed it.
Yes.
But customs is still using benchmark as a reference rate. They use benchmark where we are not to... Because benchmark did not come out of a vacuum. It came because customs were using a benchmark rate that is a discretional rate.
Just to cap off, from where you sit, what do we do now? What would you like to see in terms of the benchmark values?
Me?
What more do you want to see?
If we have to use the transactional values, then of course the benchmark as customs is using now, that they call it reference rate,
right,
should be taken off the table.
It should be taken off the table.
Otherwise, if they bring it and they deliberately increase it, then they are taking advantage, because what I've bought from my supplier is what you have to use to value me. But if you bring a discretional value and then deliberately increase it, that's what called for reduction of the benchmark.
I get the point, and this discussion, why I don't want to go into the thick of it. If we start, we'll never finish.
You brought it up.
But let me come to you, Prof. Right before we cross over.
They are not competitive.
Right before we cross over, the AGI is not competitive.
Oh, benchmark is out, and that was his argument.
And they are still not competitive.
They are not competitive.
Is it the only factor?
No.
Let him understand it.
So
It's an economic
let's
model.
talk about the factors, the actual factors.
There are many factors. So when one worsens the initial price,
VAT should be taken out of the table from you.
On VAT, they should be
It should be taken. Because when I go and buy my goods from abroad, once it's being exported, they take the VAT from it before it's exported so that the product becomes cheaper. And so the same should be applied to the local manufacturer, because we have to take their produce.
All right. I don't want this to turn into an impasse or a standoff between the two of you. Of course, Guta and the AGI will always have their differences on some of these matters. We'll try to get Prof back, because I wanted to find out from both those in the studio and Prof what their expectations are in terms of getting the second tranche of the IMF money. But for now, let us cross over to Studio 997 once more. George Weafe waiting in the wings together with his guest. This is still the Joy Business pre-budget forum, and we're gearing up for Wednesday when we'll know where the chips will actually fall. George, handing over back to you in Studio 997.
Business special, and for huge discounts and free gifts, visit Letroland showrooms, the authorized dealers for shops of all your needs in house electrical and electronic goods. Whenever you leave the S and Letroland showroom and dealers and shops that are close to you, just look for a Samsung TCL or a NASCO sign, and you are sure that your search is over. For further information, call us on 0503 159739 or visit us on www.letroland.com. Letroland, home of luxury and affordable electronics. And Magbudu Aboji, going forward, do you get that sense, having a fun program, that maybe there's some hope or some clarity in the outlook? There are all sorts of things. There are even discussions about the second tranche, the board meeting on 22nd. Discussions are ongoing with bilateral creditors and all the rest. Do you get the sense that the outlook is quite stable, or still there is some sense of a not clear outlook that keeps businesses like yours worried? Do you think that the outlook is stable, or though there's still some uncertainty? But I think the outlook is positive for us. I mean, just for the first tranche, there's an announcement. We saw some stability, and all of us are experiencing that. And it's key for businesses. That stability will help us to predict into the future and be able to come out with strategies that will help businesses. I think we have, for long before even we went to IMF, have predicted that we should go to IMF, because from where we were and the place that we were going, we realized that the only way out was for IMF to come in. IMF, for me, is not only the money, but the sort of discipline that they also bring into the economy. And for me, I think in 2024, I'm happy that IMF is with us, so that whatever we do will be within a certain parameters that we have set for ourselves. So we wouldn't promise so many things that we cannot deliver, and by which case, at the end of it, we have to increase taxes and other things. So that discipline for me is key. We've seen inflation coming down. It's a combination of factors, but I think the IMF has also played a very critical role in that. What we are still struggling with is with the interest rate, where as part of the conditions there should be monetary tightening, and we have the policy rate going up to the level of 30% now. It's affecting the lending rate. People are borrowing between
37 to 45%, and it's just abnormal that a business that would want to make profit and expand will be borrowing at that rate. The electricity issue and then the water are also there, but we can't have all rosy like that. Once they are coming to help us solve our issues, definitely there will be conditionalities, and we knew that these are some of the things that we're going to go through, but we need to get a fine balance between these conditionalities and how we can also stimulate private sector activity.
I'll be coming back to you again to get your thoughts about, for you, after the budget, what next? And if these your proposals that you've made is not taken on board, what will be the next line of action in engaging government? Let me bring in Professor John Gachi. Prof, does the fund program give you some comfort in terms of fiscal discipline going into 2024 with respect to this budget? Or, we always not forget about an election year and what happens. And for you, do you think that having a fund program, you are somehow comforted that things won't get out of hand in an election year?
Definitely things, if not monitored well, will get out of hand. I say this because of our historical evidence. We know that all the troubles we've been talking about from 2017 to date, we were having IMF with us. They were not able to apply the brake until we exited them in 2019, and COVID strike, and our situation was aggravated somehow. So I'm not too sure whether the IMF has what it takes to compel the government not to overspend during the election 2024, as the case will be. So we only hope that we are able to do that in 2024.
Yeah, so I get from you that the key word there is monitor. Professor, I try to wrap up with you and come to my guest into the for you, do you think that this budget would help consolidate these gains that we are making, or still, after the budget, there are still a lot more things that needs to be done to ensure that that stability is achieved, Prof?
Yeah, we just started the journey. There are still some indicators showing that we need to work very hard. For example, we are just relying solely on the treasury bill rate, and that is creating some challenges in the financial sector. We need to work assiduously to change that trend. We need to work very hard to accommodate a revamp of the Ghanaian domestic bond market to complement the treasury bill. If not so, things will get out of hand. We are still having difficulty with the high interest rate. That will be worked on to slow down. And then the growth momentum of the country, though we have seen some remarkable growth numbers in the second quarter of this year, but we're still having a problem with inclusive growth and sustaining the inclusive growth. So the inclusive growth is not what is coming forward for us. We want to see inclusive growth dominate our discussion when it comes to growth. We want to take advantage more of the agriculture sector, the opportunities that are provided. When you look at the disaggregated data from the statistical survey, it's very clear that we need to target some agricultural produce and ensure that we are successful at them, and that will spur up growth for the economy. And by so doing, we may be solving somehow pressure on the currency from importation of such agricultural produce, and we may also be solving somehow food inflation. So these issues are still with us, and we need to attempt to deal with them in a frontal manner. Depreciation is promised to be undulating, especially as we expect 600 million from the IMF, and we have not met the conditions yet. The cocoa syndicated loan that we expect, it has not come. That hole is there that will put pressure on the currency. So these are issues that we are going to 2024 with, and we need to find a way of resolving them. If we are not able to deal with the energy situation, that will also spell a doom for us. So these are the areas that I think that we should be concentrating and trying to provide, some pragmatic solution to address them.
Indeed, providing some pragmatic solutions to deal with these problems. But Magbido Abaji, let me come back to you, and also this perceived stability post the fund program. Is that impacting on your members, and what are their expectations going forward in terms of this fund program and what is happening right now?
Well, the expectation is that the fund program will help improve further the environment.
But I'm saying that have you felt the stability, the macro numbers, you're seeing some stability, has it trickled down to your members in terms of their business dealings?
Not significantly. Not significantly. Of course, when you come to the foreign exchange market, what we were expecting is probably a further drop in the exchange rate. The 12 for me is still high, even though now it's stable. So you'll be able to predict on that score. It is actually having positive impact on business. Inflation coming down to its current level of 38.1 or so will not necessarily translate into a lower cost, because at that cost, when it comes to utilities, interest rate, and other things, nothing has really changed on that. But we are hopeful that it will improve. These things, in fact, when we go to the level that we were in economic situation, it's almost always difficult for you to come up. It takes quite longer time, and it's a gradual process. That is why I always hope that we don't get to that level, because some of the businesses that may collapse in the heat of these difficulties may not necessarily be able to come back, and though that will relocate, will not come back. So we don't wait till we get to that level. We are there now, so it will take some time for businesses to feel the full impact of these changes that are coming.
And those members of yours that had to put their businesses on hold, have we seen them coming back?
No,
or still...
some of them are still observing what will really happen in the few years to come. Some, they are still a bit skeptical. They are afraid of what will happen because they are not too sure of what the future holds. So they are waiting to look at the numbers and see the level of improvement that will draw them in. In terms of investment, there have been some positives. There are now a lot of inquiries about what is going on, which areas do you think they can invest in, and all those things. Especially, we've been meeting a lot of investors from other countries, and we are looking at the manufacturing sector, we are looking at the agri sector. So now there's a bit of optimism and some positive thinking with what is happening in the economy. With regard to investors who would want to invest in Ghana. It's good that we start from somewhere. It's good that we bring that level of confidence in. It's good that we present this confidence to also investors. That is what we have achieved at the moment. But for somebody to take a decision, it may go beyond this confidence that we have in the business environment to looking at how the other things will also impact on the activities.
And Mr. Baja, I get from you that come Wednesday, it's your hope that whatever engagement that you had with the Ministry of Finance and even the Minister himself, he'll give some hope to you that indeed this engagement was worth it.
Yes, it has to. Because that is, for me, that is the reason why they always call us to do a presentation. If they will call us and not take our input and factor them into the budget, then for me, there is no need. We have presented a strong case to them, and I'll go back to the taxes, that they should take a critical look at the taxes that we have. They are not helping businesses, and they are also not generating revenue to them. They should, one, scrap this COVID-19 levy. We have said it several times. They should also take a second look at the e-levy. We still think that the rate is high, and if they should bring it down further to around 0.5, people will pay even without thinking about it, and that will bring them a lot of revenue. And also, focus more on compliance and efficiency in collection of taxes. A lot of people in Ghana are not paying. They themselves have estimated that close to 50 million businesses and individuals are supposed to pay. As we speak now, only 3 million are paying. If you make such an estimate and you have the data, what prevents you from going to those who are not paying?
Encourage more people to pay the taxes
instead of piling the taxes on the businesses and killing those businesses. I don't think it will help.
Mr. Baji, thank you so much for your thought. This has been, or this is the Joy Business Special pre-budget forum, the 2024 budget, maintaining a tight fiscal policy to spur economic growth and in an election year. Now, dearly beloved Ghanaian, you are invited to attend the National Christian Forum 2023 and share in the biggest conversation of elections 2024, evaluating the impact of political parties and how Christians should vote. As Christians, God mandates us the light and the salt of our nation, and join renowned speakers and seasoned discussants, including Presiding Bishop of the Methodist Church of Ghana, Most Reverend Dr. Paul Boafo, Senior Pastor of the Baptist Church of Ghana, Dr. Fadigwe, and Dr. Angela Jamuabuaji, Professor Achuaye Bernard Avle, and Mr. George Pra, and many more. That is this Thursday, 16th of November, 6:30 at the Action Chapel, Spintex Road, Accra. Friday, 17th November 2023, 4:30 p.m. at the Ridge Wesley Towers behind the British Council. Saturday, 18th of November 2023, 9 a.m. at the Ridge Wesley Towers behind the British Council. This meeting is absolutely free and being hosted by Advocates for Christ Ghana in partnership with the Action Church International and Methodist Church Ghana, Frimpong Manso Institute, and the 97 Bakes, and also City of God Church, Praise TV, Sunny FM, Multimedia Group Limited, and host of many Christian churches and organizations. Follow and like and share us on all the social media platforms at Advocates for Christ Ghana. That is, call us on 054 5477771. For more inquiries, see you on ground in person. For huge discounts and free gift, visit the Electroland showrooms and authorized dealers for shops of all your needs and household. Where we live, and there is an Electroland showroom for dealers. Just look at the Samsung and also TCL and NASCO sign, and you are assured or that your search. So for more information, call us on 0503-159739 or visit us on www.electroland.com. Electroland, home of luxury and affordable electricals. Hello kids, are you ready to turn out the heat and showcase your kitchen skills in the world? Now, this is the season 3 of the ultimate cooking contest, that is the Big Chef. Are you between 18 and 14 years, and have you got the passion for cooking? Don't miss out on this opportunity. Share a 2-minute video of yourself cooking your favorite meal on WhatsApp. That is 055-1575-757 and get shortlisted for the season of the Big Chef. Let's turn the kitchen dreams into a reality. Remember, from now to the 14th of November 2023 to submit your videos. Big Chef, Good Meals by Kids, Joy Prime, the ultimate experience. Ben, take it over. We're down here in the studios of Joy 997.
Thank you, George Weafe. And of course, we'll be wrapping here in the studios of Joy News. Of course, that conversation continuing here. As we gear up to wrap, Prof, thank you for joining the conversation again. You heard, for example, Mark Bedu Abwaje saying that we should scrap the COVID-19 levy. But what I want to focus on with you, very briefly, Prof, straight to the point. Do you think we're going to get the second tranche of the IMF money, the $600 million, which will shore up our economy? And when should we expect a turnaround in our economy? Is that in the short term, medium term, long term? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I think we are on the right track. And so we should be expecting to get that. Negotiations are currently underway with the external creditors. I'm sure that was a major headway that they had to cross. So looking at what we have achieved so far with all the things the measures that were put in place, we should be able to get that. And then your second question, how long it takes us to get out of the woods completely would also depend on how well we also take advantage of the space that we are getting currently. Currently, we are doing well As to whether we are going to be maintaining what we are doing and be rationalizing expenditure and also being aggressive in terms of mobilizing revenue would be what would determine how long it is going to be taking. I think we've had enough of the rhetorics in terms of we are taking this revenue measure, we are doing that. How aggressive are we going to be in terms of property tax, for example? It's one main thing that we are relying on to be able to put the economy back on track. There are about 10.7 million structures. If each structure or the owner of each structure was paying 1,500 Ghana cedis, obviously that would translate into the 1 billion that sometimes we go out for. So how well we are going to be or how fast we are going to be getting out of the woods would depend on how aggressive we are going to be in terms of these revenue measures and then also in terms of our expenditure. How we would be able to manage and rationalize our expenditure.
Prof, thank you so much for having joined the conversation. Of course, Professor Ejapoma Jekidako speaking there. Let me come into the studio. What are your expectations, gentlemen, of the 2024 budget, as bite-sized as possible? I'll start with you, Dr. Obi.
All that we seek is the reduction of the taxes that we've been paying. The cost of doing business is simply too high. And what comes to
which specific taxes?
What comes to mind is the COVID-19. It's a one-purpose tax that government pleaded with us. That because there's no precedent anywhere in the world that the pandemic that came to destroy businesses, a levy was imposed on it. It should be taken out of the table ASAP. And then this special import levy. It was imposed on us by the previous administration. They also pleaded with us that they will use it temporarily to solve a problem, and that after the sunset, and the sun has never set, it has become a tax in perpetuity.
That clause has been.
It has become a tax in perpetuity. If they want us to trust governance, the government and all that, then they of course, we deem it illegitimate taxes because you pleaded with us for temporary use, and then it can.
So these must go.
Yes, and then our tax base is very small. We have to expand the tax net. And then plug the leakages in the system.
As for these ones, I think we've discussed over time.
Zone, the warehousing and all that.
Thank you, Dr. Obi.
Yeah.
We expected the zero VAT on the sanitary part. 2, we expect same zero VAT on the textile manufacturers importation. That's also on that. The mention of COVID already. Taxes on sweetening juice beverages. We also expect that to be reversed. The growth and sustainability tax is still a big concern to us within the tax bracket. Nonetheless, the next one is the PFJ. The PFJ, to our cry, is that for purpose of value addition and the value chain engagement, the PFJ2 should target specific products that can reverse the import bill. And number 2, that should be targeted with commercial farmers, not smallholder farmers. When you do commercial farmers targeting, the aggregate impact, we believe, within a period of 1 year will be impactful on the GDP as against spreading it on smallholder farmers. Finally, we believe that we could use non-taxable policy to create competitive environment and to stimulate the productive sector. Once you focus on non-taxable policies, I believe there's a lot of tools that we can deploy, including the China more related ones. You will create a 30% mandatory intake for every retail shop from the Ghanaian production space. We thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay. So those who joined us for the conversation right before we wrap, Professor John Gachi, Dean School of Business, University of Cape Coast, Professor Ejapoma Jekidako, Economist and Senior Lecturer, University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Humphrey Ayimdake, you just heard him speaking very passionately, President, Association of Ghana Industries, Dr. Joseph Obeng, President, Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA for short, and Mark Bedu Abwache, CEO, Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We had another guest from the AGI as well. Well, right before we go, Joy FM returns with the 4th edition of its Thought Leadership Forum on Arts, Tourism and Culture. We've dubbed it Showbiz Roundtable. It's coming off this 18th day of November 2023 at the Labadi Beach Hotel. The theme is events, venues and safety, and aims at assessing the operations of event centers, challenges faced by event vendors, the safety consciousness of event patrons, and the general precautionary checklist of organizing events ahead of the Yuletide. So our panelists, some of them, just to let you know, Uncle Ebo White will be there. Solomon Latte is president of the Chartered Insurance Institute of Ghana. Richard Osei, CEO of Asuavo Security Company Limited. Kojo Poku, an event organizer, among others. It will be emceed by Noella Karinyale and moderated by Kwame Daze. So note that date, 18th November 2023 at the Labadi Beach Hotel. Time, 2 p.m. Well, let me tell you a bit about GoTV. If you're a GoTV Super customer, pay attention because GoTV has got something special for you. From the 1st to the 30th of November, we're still in there. We're treating all GoTV Super customers to a taste of GoTV Super Plus. How exciting. There's so much to enjoy on Super Plus, from non-stop Premier League action on a dedicated Super Sport channel, the best international movies on Studio Universal, intriguing series on Universal TV, and the best local shows on Aquaba Magic and Africa Magic Showcase. The kids are not left out as they can watch all their favorite characters on the Disney Channel. So don't miss out on this awesome experience. Reconnect or stay connected on *759#, *759#, so you can give GoTV Super Plus a go. GoTV, love it. And right before we take leave of you, did you know you could pause and reverse live TV on your HD Plus decoder at no extra fee? Simply connect a USB flash drive with a capacity of 4 gigabytes or more to your HD Plus decoder and have control over your TV viewing. Also schedule your HD Plus decoder to record live or upcoming shows and catch up your favorite shows in HD at your own time. This is the world-class TV viewing. So purchase an HD decoder from the nearest Electroland showroom or multi-TV dealer outlet nationwide. Visit hdplus.com.gh or call 0242 439 872. And you'll get that feely experience. From us to you, we're grateful that you took the time to join us ahead of the budget reading on the 15th day of this month. That's how we wrap. Thank you for watching.